Okay, good morning, everybody. Sorry for being so loud. I startled the chair of public safety. My name is Mark Hashem. My name is Mark Hashem. This is the chair on the Committee on Water, joint with the Committee on Public Safety. To my left is the chair of Public Safety, Representative Della Bellotti. It is Tuesday, March 11th, 2025, 9 a.m., and we are in conference room 411 at the state capitol. And I need to make some statements before we start on. There's no set time limit. We're not going to have a hard time limit, but try to keep it to 2 minutes. If you go beyond that, well, I'll ask you to sum it up. This is a morning hearing, so we have floor session at 12, so please, everybody be aware of that. For everybody that is on Zoom, please mute yourself and turn off your video while you're waiting to testify until you get called. If you're on Zoom, please do not have any trademark material with you or in the background, because we will get knocked off of YouTube. If you're disconnected unexpectedly, we will try to get you back on. But if we can't, well, too bad. In the event of network failure, we will reschedule this hearing, and that's it. And first up, we have SB 11, relating to vegetation management near utility lines. First up, we have DCCA with comments.
Chairs, vice chairs, members, making out for DCCA, will stand on our written comments.
Okay. Next up, we have DLNR in opposition.
Aloha, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. My name is Michael Walker. I serve as the statewide fire protection forester for DLNR, Forestry and Wildlife. The department stands in strong opposition to this bill. In short, it would grant the rights to the benefits of the easement and place the responsibility and liability upon the state and private landowners for the easement. I'm available for any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, you have PUC with comments. Leo, is the PUC here?
Chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee,
Okay, next up, we have IBEW Local 1260, Kika.
Chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee, Kiko Bukowski on behalf of IBW 1260, standing in strong support of this measure.
Okay, next we have Hawaii Association for Justice with comments. Evan? Nope, not here. Hawaiian Electric in support.
Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, and members of the committee. My name is Wendy Oda, and I'm here on behalf of Hawaiian Electric. We have submitted our written testimony in support of the bill with requested amendments. Hawaiian Electric understands the community's continued concerns about wildfire risk and believes this bill is a first step in addressing their concerns and creating a framework for moving forward in helping to address public safety and system reliability. Thank you for the opportunity to add to our testimony, and I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Next we have Hawaii Farm Bureau with comments. Brian?
Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committees. I'm Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. You have a written testimony providing comments. Do apologize, Chair, for the late testimony. You know, Hawaii's farmers and ranchers recognize the devastating impact that wildfires can have, not just to our communities and natural resources, but also to agriculture. And farmers and ranchers can actually help with wildfires with their land management and stewardship. We do appreciate the intent of the measure. However, we do have concerns about the potential impact and burdens on Hawaii's farmers and ranchers. One, the burden cost to farmers. Maintaining vegetation to meet new requirements can be costly and labor intensive, especially for small scale or family farm-owned farms or ranches. Maybe some financial assistance or cost sharing could be incorporated if this bill moves forward. Also, risk of liability issues. If a property owner, small farmer rancher, cannot immediately comply due to financial or logistical constraints, will they be held liable for any fires that occur? Clear liability protection should be considered. Again, we talk about farmers and ranchers and their razor-thin margins, sometimes not even breaking even. This is another cost that could affect our ability to produce the food, feed, fiber, fuel, and floriculture that Hawaii needs. Broad authority for utility companies. The bill gives electric utility companies the ability to enter private property to remove vegetation. Clear notification and engagement property owners should be required before any action is taken. We understand that there is some certified mail, phone calls, other things in there, but again, farmers and ranchers aren't always the easiest to reach. They're out in rural areas. Potential crop damage. Without clear guidelines, vegetation removal by utility companies could disrupt farming operations, damage crops, or remove windbreaks that protect fields from erosions. Again, farming is unique. Without a true understanding of what that ag operation is, there could be potential negative impacts to that farm or ranch. While wildfire protection is important, this bill should not create excessive burdens on farmers and ranchers who are already managing their land responsibly. Again, we're asking for support for our farmers and ranchers. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have Kamehameha Schools. The comments?
Morning, Chair. Hashem, Chair Bellotti, members of the committee, vice chairs. Steve Tevis for Kamehameha Schools. We have submitted comments, but really what this is, we would like to point out is many of these easements are decades old, centuries old. A lot of them have no compensation. They did it for community service that the utilities could run over. This bill would put some burdens, especially financial burdens, on those landowners. So we agree with the Farm Bureau, we agree with DLNR. We think this is premature. We like the idea, don't get me wrong, but there was no consultation with, I think, any of the landowners when the bill was introduced. This was, you can tell from the beginning, if you look at the original SB 11, it's just a utility bill. These are complex issues, a lot of different moving parts because the landowners are different in what degree they are, small, large, farmers, nonprofits, and all. So we would ask that the bill be deferred, and I think already there's 2 concurrent resos that's been introduced regarding a working group, and we think that would be the better way to go, or to have the chairs informally convene a working group, and Kamehameha Schools would more than be happy to participate. Here to answer any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. That's, anybody on Zoom? Nobody on Zoom? Okay, anybody else wishing to testify?
Henry Curtis, Life of Land. I believe I sent in testimony.
Okay, go ahead.
Electric lines are the purview of the Public Utilities Commission. The Public Utilities Commission should be addressing this issue. They opened a non-docket that preemptively and illegally banned any public participation. I repeat, preemptively and illegally banned any public participation, and they have not issued any decision on electric lines dealing with fire in 19 months. It is the purview of the Public Utilities Commission to address this issue. They should be involving all stakeholders, should be able to intervene, and there should be a full discussion at the Public Utilities Commission. Thank you.
Okay. Henry, I don't have your, can you give it to them in the front? Okay, thank you. Anybody else wishing to testify? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Go
I
ahead.
have a question,
Represent-
CC, for Henry Curtis. So were you standing in opposition to passing this bill, or?
This bill, yes, opposition.
Anybody else?
Public Utilities Commissions, please. What is the timeline for the docket that appears to have been initiated? And what I'm interested in is, I understand that that docket is covering topics of like the wildfire maps. And can you explain a little bit about what's going on in that area?
Yeah, so the docket we mentioned in the testimony is focused on reviewing and evaluating Hawaiian Electric's wildfire mitigation plan. And part of that plan does discuss their vegetation management program. So I believe this docket would be the appropriate venue for developing vegetation management rules.
Okay, so can you comment on the timeline And then with respect to
Yes.
the wildfire maps, is the PUC in that docket going to be dealing with just wildfire maps with respect to HECO or with generally overall, or what is the intersection? What is happening with wildfire maps within this docket?
HECO has developed wildfire risk maps based on like their infrastructure, and so that is part of the proceeding. And we're aware that other states have done, their PUCs have done a lot of work on wildfire maps with their utilities. So that's definitely an area we want to explore more. In terms of timeline, we intend to make a decision on the wildfire mitigation plan by September, and both KIUC and HECO file their plans annually every January.
And then one last question, what is the process for the public to participate in that docket?
We allowed intervention. Life of the Land was the only entity that applied to intervene. I believe the intervention window has closed, but we are hosting 2 public meetings on April 23rd and 24th, and intend to collect input from the public at those meetings.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing, or anybody? Go ahead, Representative Shimizu.
Thank you, Chair. Question for HECO, please. I guess my question would be, what is the current setup? How is it set up currently as far as addressing these concerns?
Currently, we currently have an inspection program and also a cycle of which we do vegetation management. So we do go around the island, we check, and we then do the work to schedule and clear the vegetation. So we do have a system in place that does it. Again, that's what we're maintaining right now.
So what would be the improvement of this bill based on what is currently being done, which I'm hearing is pretty sufficient as far as addressing the concern?
Well, in terms of the bill, it does provide us with some access abilities to access some of the lands that we can't. In some cases, we don't have easements and we need to access. So it does provide us with that ability. So we don't have easements all over that covers every single line, so we do need to have that sort of piece. And also in the cases where we've added some amendments, it is not very easy to get access to people's property. Sometimes they don't allow us to get on the property. There are gates that then stop us from one place to the other, especially in rural areas. Like the Farm Bureau said, right, they have gates and things to keep us out. So it's not as easy just because we have an easement. Sometimes our easements are very far into the property. We have to gain access. We have to clear trails and those things. So it does provide some of that information or ability for us when we don't have easement. So there are some, things in there that allows us to, improve our process, shall we say.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So currently, does HECO pay for all of this vegetation clearance?
Yes.
And with this new bill, would HECO still pay for all of that vegetation clearance?
So because this would require that we have additional work, there's clearance requirements in the bill that we would ask for, some recovery for the additional costs.
And who would you pursue this reimbursement with?
So we would be hoping that that would be part of the bill, so it probably within the PUC realm of, we can recover the additional costs.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I don't understand the answer to that.
Oh,
So who would pay for that,
The
PUC?
ratepayers, yeah, the ratepayers,
So it would go back to the ratepayers then?
correct, for the additional costs.
Like a special assessment or something?
We haven't determined how it would be in terms of what the cost is. So again, right, it would be the additional costs, not the total cost. We have some of that now, so we would have to see what those costs are to determine, what that would be and how it would be included.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Question? Anybody else?
Yeah,
Go ahead,
I think
Representative Woma.
Thank you, Chair. So are you just clearing the easement for where the lines are going? I mean, are we afraid of lines snapping and hitting the ground, or is it where they're connecting to poles?
So when we clear the corridor. So it's the poles, the area, right, the poles, And from the line
Yeah.
outside, we clear. So if we believe that, there's a tree that might fall, we would clear, so there's an identified sort of corridor.
So all those spaces that you currently have easements or access, are you currently?
Yes,
clearing everything?
that's part of our, our process. Again, right, is we do clear, if it's eminent, we clear it, to that point. However, trees grow at different rates. They grow based on where it's located, what kind of tree it is. So we do our best to clear what we can. People call us and we go and we check it and we clear if we need to, and do all those things. So yes, there's, it's a community, people asking, and then our system going through and doing the
And I'm
clearing.
sorry, it might have been in your testimony, but what percentage do you have access to currently, and what percentage of your lines?
So we essentially have the right we'll access it when we can. I can't tell you how many percent of what easements we have, because some of the lines are on the public right-of-ways and things of that sort. But there are places where we don't have any easements, but for the most part, a lot of the easements are in state property because they're out on the mountainsides and everything, so we do have those. But it is still hard to get to. Some of them we have to fly helicopters to. We can't, just go up there and access. We have to clear trails and those things. So there's, for, these high wildfire areas, there could be a lot of places where access is difficult, and so we're clearing trails and doing those things. So, sorry, I don't have a percentage.
Okay, thank you.
2 questions for you. First one should be easy, and I'll start with the good stuff. So there's complicated things, moving pieces in this bill. On the piece about tree trimmers and work being done, I mean, this seems like it's really kind of specialized work. So do you have any problems with that language in here about the requirements needed for those people who are going to be doing this vegetation clearing?
No, we believe that we will have, with our increasing staff and everything to cover some of that. And then also with the third-party people doing the clearing, so we should have sufficient capacity.
Then the second question is in the area of kind of like these agreements, these easements. Is part of the solution something where you and private landowners can renegotiate easements to make sure that responsibilities for clearing, access, that could be worked out more within the setting of between private parties?
Yes and no. So when we negotiate easements, in some cases, right, it's, and we have to look out in terms of what is reasonable for the ratepayers and everything to bear the cost and those things. So yes, we try to negotiate and get reasonable terms. In some cases, the state, the counties and everything, we are sort of subject to their conditions. We don't have the ability to say we don't accept it if we have to be on your property. And in some cases, our lines are on the state property. We can't move them out because they're in, the forested lands and everything going in the hills. So we do our best to negotiate the terms in terms of that. So yes, we do take the time to negotiate with the landowners to see if we can. If you're asking, can we go back and renegotiate all the easements? That would be a time-consuming effort to go ahead and do. We do have, like he said, a lot of easements that go back, since the beginning of time, shall I say. And so to have to negotiate all of those would be a large effort, and in some cases, they would then, maybe ask for more compensation because what was included in the previous easement is now we're asking for more requirements. So it can get complicated in that respect.
So I understand it can be complicated, but between 2 private parties, I mean, if you want to ensure safety of the community, I mean, I'm not suggesting that it needs to be done with, like, all of your folks, but if you have large landowners with whom you have easements with and to protect the community, isn't that something that private property folks can do to renegotiate and find the best, so that we don't need legislation, is what I'm saying? Is that also an option?
It's an option that we can look at, yes. Again, right, if what they're asking is that again, we have to look at where it is, what we're talking about, what they're asking us for. So it is an option. Until we see the exact language, it'd be hard for me to say that it's, it can happen as easily as possible. But yes, it is an option.
Okay. I guess, can I follow up with a question for KS?
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Tevez, I think you know where I'm going with this, right? I mean, part of this solution and what's complicated about this is that there's multiple private landowners that are involved. There's lots of city and state county agencies. And look, I get it. It would be very difficult to renegotiate easements with any government entity. But is part of the solution for private parties to renegotiate easements and agreements so that for the protection of the community, certainly large landowners and private companies could do this work and we don't need this?
I agree. I think there's a provision in the bill that says subject to, contractual relations or something of that nature. One of the problems for KS is some of it is so old, it's perpetual easement. We're not getting compensated for it. So, yeah, we would like to renegotiate because if we're going to be taking on some of the risks, we're not getting compensated for the easement. So, I mean, for your question, Chair, yeah, at least for private owners, we would be willing to renegotiate the easements to put in whatever language that both parties can agree to.
And one last follow-up question. Is this something that should be done in the PUC docket? Or can it be done? Are you a party in the PUC docket? Or
We're not a
yes?
party in the PUC docket. But I would leave that to the PUC to decide how they would do that. But yeah, we're not a party in the PUC docket.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
You're not, I got a question. You're not particularly opposed to this?
Opposed to the language of the bill, but not the idea. That at some point, if it's better for everyone and it's easier, that it be in statute. But something that's agreed upon by all. Because I think you have DLNR, you have state, county easements, you have small farmers, large landowners. And I think one of the problems is it's not one size fits all. You're gonna need some work to kind of get maybe even tiers of language on depending on where it is. And like Hiko said, I agree. It's depending where the easement is. If they're flying in with helicopters versus they can walk 100 yards into the property, that's two different things.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure, I have another question, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I agree with what Rep. Bellotti was saying, and I have a question for you. I'm sorry, I should have asked you when you're standing there, KSB. So, I'm sorry for this really elementary question, but as far as easements, do you get compensated for easements on your property?
Some we do, some we don't.
Okay.
Depending, I guess, when it was given and all. So like I said, some of our easements is over a century old.
And for easements that, let's say, the ones that you don't get compensated for, do you hold the liability for what happens on that easement?
Rep, I wouldn't know without having the easement in front of me right now with the language. But I know there's some easements we don't get compensated for. It's just given as a community service.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I have one last question with PUC.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And it's related back to Rep. Bellotti's question is, without this legislation, can parties just have conversation and address these concerns and work it out?
So I think what would happen is the PUC would develop more specific guide or rules regarding like the clearance distance from between the electric line and the vegetation. But I think it would be helpful to have statute that is a little more broad and takes a step towards defining the utilities obligations. I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
You actually answered my question. Go ahead.
So is the answer yes, you can have conversation without legislation to work this out?
Yes.
Okay, that's great, thank you.
Any more questions? Seeing none, we are moving on. Next up, we have HB 1296 relating to disaster recovery. First up, we have Michael Kane, DLNR, in support. Or Ryan?
Ryan Kanakawale, DLNR. Good morning, chairs, vice chairs. The Department of Land and Natural Resources supports this bill. We believe that it will help in the post-disaster recovery process by easing some regulatory burdens, both on the landowner's side as well as the regulatory agencies who have to process these permit reviews.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have OPSD in support.
Yeah, good morning, chairs, vice chairs, and members of the committee. OPSD stand on written testimony with support, but minor amendment.
Okay, next, do we have somebody on Zoom? What's their name? Jeff on Zoom.
Good morning. Jeff Uyoka here, Front Street Recovery. Submitted the written testimony, stand by that testimony, be available if you have any questions for me. Thank you.
Okay, that's all the people that we have registered to testify. Is there anybody else wishing to testify? Seeing none. Members, are there any questions?
Yes, I have a question for DLNR. Could properties have been originally built lawfully that were before we enacted HRS 6E, which is, the bone, yeah. So, and then in rebuilding, you start discovering like, oh, there's all these bones here. I mean, so what would happen in that instance?
That's a 6E question. So, I mean, if during the process, if there's an inadvertent discovery, if there's an inadvertent discovery, then in the process of rebuilding, then 6E would be triggered, and so there would be, stopping work.
So it's not an
working with
exemption to
Shifty.
that?
No. This is a exception from 205A, the SMA process.
Okay.
I have a question. Thank you, Chair. I have a question for DLNR, since you're here, please. The question is, for homeowners that have to rebuild, is there a time limit on when they have to accomplish this by?
I don't think we're the appropriate person. I think that, are we talking about like building permits? Because that would be a county question. The bill itself, I think, did we put the 5-year limitation?
Sorry, Michael Kane, also with Department of Land and Natural Resources. We've talked a lot with the county planning departments in developing our testimony. It does impact, 205A is the Coastal Zone Management Act, which is under OPSD. So we support the 5-year amendment, but I would have to defer to OPSD on the details of that, since it's more their kuleana than ours.
Right. Okay, and are they here?
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just questioning and relaying a question that was posed to me by my CPA, actually. He has a property in Maui, and he's receiving some insurance monies, and he was wondering, is there a time limit for him to make decisions, get the planning, and complete his rebuild?
Yes, for exemption purpose, because if we don't have the timeline, the property or developer maybe take advantage forever. Also not good for the disaster recovery. That's why based on federal requirement, we also refer to the original bill. That's why we give the 5 years from
5
the
years, okay.
proclamation start, yeah.
All right, thank you, Chair.
Anybody else has any questions? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
thank you. For any of the proponents of this bill, is anyone opposed to the amendments offered by the Attorney General's Office and the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development?
Attorney General?
We have no objections.
No? I have a question. DLNR, what is the process to go through an SMA, and how long does it take?
Ooh, that's actually an OPSD question.
Okay.
We don't handle 205A. That's.
It's fast.
Thank you for the question. Definitely SMA is depending on the application is complete or not. Generally speaking, for SMA major or SMA use permit, take about 6 months. But SMA minor, normally much more fast without hearing requirement. Please pay attention to House Bill 732. They will give the development of single-family residency, no matter how much cost, becomes SMA minor requirement only. So it will be speed up for streamline for SMA permit for single-family residency. Also raise the threshold for cost. So this is two bills combined can streamline SMA permit.
Did you say only 3 months for a minor?
Yes, or less than that. Because they're planning
No,
to,
without this bill, it's only 3 months?
yes, for SMA minor.
Okay, with this, okay. So we're shaving off 3 months of, how much is the cost of an SMA?
You mean cost what? Cost the application or cost the?
Cost to do an SMA?
That depends on the trigger. If for shoreline parcel, then sometimes if shoreline area, they'll trigger year requirement. Otherwise, if no trigger is 343, that's just based on the the zoning or this kind of policy. If consensus is kind of requirement, they can submit the application. Then whole process, based on my knowledge, I monitor this kind of process timeline for SMA use permit or SMA, just called SMA major permit is 6 months mostly. But sometimes the applicant didn't submit the complete application, they take much longer. But again, for shoreline parcel, the requirement for shoreline certification, they will take a little longer for get a certified shoreline. That's the other requirement.
Okay. Yeah, all right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, we're moving on. Next up, we have SB 1170 relating to the expeditious redevelopment and development of affordable rental housing. I need to catch up here. First up, we have SB 1170, HHFDC and support. Next, we have, are they here? Oh, you're here? Okay, sorry.
Good morning, chairs and vice chairs and committee members. Randy Chu from HHFDC. We respectfully support and stand by our submitted testimony. Thank you.
Okay, that's all the in-person people we have registered to testify. Is there anybody else wishing to testify? Nope. Anybody on Zoom? What's the name? Jeff on Zoom, go ahead.
We can see you.
Okay, Jeff, you're on, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Chair. Is this SB 1296?
We skipped 1296 already.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that was the only one. Sorry about that, Chair. Thank you.
All right. Oh, JF, sorry, Jeff, it's JF. On 1170. Go ahead, JF.
I'm here.
Go ahead,
Are you
Jeff.
calling, is this for SB 1170? I'm sorry, I'm in a phone on Maui trying to
Yes,
testify.
that's correct.
Yes, okay, thank you. We strongly support this bill. We need this bill in order to rebuild the Weinberg Court Apartments, which is an affordable housing project in Lahaina. Unfortunately, we're an experimental housing program, and so the way we were built, without this passage of this ordinance, it is extremely difficult for us to rebuild because we are on land. The county let us build on land that is zone residential, and the way the experimental housing ordinance is written, it actually makes us go through a very stringent rebuild process. And so we have submitted language in there to hopefully help expedite that. I mean, we are 63 units, all affordable, 60% of median income. We're not asking for any government monies. We have insurance funds. We just want to start rebuilding. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else?
Okay.
That's all the people that we have registered to testify. Is there anybody else wishing to testify? Seeing none, members?
Catherine Peroff was here. She's actually in the car too, but she stands on her testimony as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Members, do you have any questions? Kim
Yes,
Coco?
thank you, Chair. So I think this is for HHFDC, which was, so I actually asked my question about Iwi Kupuna on the wrong bill. This is the bill. So if there's an affordable, I don't know if there were affordable rentals built before the enactment of 6E, but if in rebuilding, would they also have to address that issue? If this bill passes, or is there an exemption to 6E? From,
I believe this bill addresses just existing structures that were damaged during events.
right,
So, yes, we would, we have one project in particular on Lahaina, Front Street Apartments. It's a 100% affordable project.
Can you use the mic?
yeah, sorry.
We need it on record. Yeah.
Yes, we have a project in particular in Lahaina, Maui, called the Front Street Apartments. It was a affordable housing project that was severely damaged during the wildfire. We would really want to rebuild it as quick as possible because there's a need for permanent affordable housing. The DHS's temporary homes are just that, temporary. And, you know, the residents there want some permanency. So we're really trying to strive to do that. And this bill would help us expedite it by cutting down the SMA process time.
Got it. So going back to when these apartments were originally built, could that have been before HRS 6E was enacted? And so it might have been lawfully built, but before all of these, environmental, but also cultural safeguards.
It was built, this particular project was built during the time it went through an SMA process. But then, you know, when you rebuild it, you know, the configuration may change a little bit.
Right.
And so that's why it may trigger a new SMA if you can't stand on the original SMA.
Got it. So my question is, if they rebuild, and as they're rebuilding, if they discover Iwi Kupuna, do they have to stop and address that?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
You know, during construction, we would stress that, you know, if there's any kind of fines
Okay.
that are discovered, we would certainly address it at that time.
Okay, great. So it's not an exemption to that.
Oh, no, no. You would, you know, if you find any kind of archaeological or other points of interest, we would definitely address it during the construction.
Okay, great. Thanks.
I have a question. You can stay right there. Ryan, right?
Randy.
Randy. Thank you, Randy. So 1296 and this bill is kind of similar in a sense, but it does different things. But I wanted to have you explain the difference and how this bill works in conjunction with 1296. I know you didn't comment on 1296 but I wanted you to explain why the redevelopment part is so important versus reconstruction. Can you talk about that?
Well, unfortunately, we did not provide comments on 1296, so I'm not too familiar with that one. We were really trying to address existing affordable housing, and that's why we wanted to.
Right. What I'm trying to get
endorse
at
this.
is for you to explain why redevelopment is needed versus reconstructing those structures that were previously there for
Oh.
the parcels specifically that you folks are.
Okay. Yeah, I may speak on that. Redevelopment may mean that the project will be substantially the same, but it may not be exactly the same. Reconstruction is like a major rehabilitation project, whereas redevelopment is you're starting from scratch. And what's the best layout and for the site at this point in time?
And then this bill would exempt you, so upon receiving the SMA permit, they would be exempted from the EIS process. Is that correct? 343.
Yes.
So then, to Rep. Iwamoto's point, would it still, if there is EV kupuna found on the parcels, would you still have to consult SHPD?
Yes. During construction, if we encounter EV, we will certainly stop, address it with the SHPD, and take the appropriate actions at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
No questions? Seeing none? Okay, members, we're moving on. Next up, we have SB 1099 relating to IAL. First up, we have Department of Agriculture with comments.
Department of Agriculture, where we have the bottom chair, vice chair, member, department stands on this written testimony, offering comments. You can answer any questions.
Thank you. Next, we have Hawaii State Land Use Commission.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Land Use Commission stands on testimony.
Okay, next we have Farm Bureau with comments.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. You have our written testimony providing comments. The Hawaii Farm Bureau is a strong supporter of IL. In fact, we helped craft the language that ultimately passed in 2005. We also helped with incentives in 2008. That being said, we do have some concerns with IL and with the bill. We believe the state should fulfill its kuleana first. We do support the counties mapping out and ultimately identifying and then the state designating IL lands. But the state should take care of their kuleana first. They have not yet identified any state lands. In fact, to this point, only, I believe, private land, about 136,000 acres of private land has been identified as IL. Secondly, we support the county's ability and knowing what's best for the counties and knowing the intricacies of their ag lands. So we don't want to see the county's voice taken away. Now, we understand that this bill, the implementation isn't until December 31st, 2027. That's 2.5 years from now. But instead of a stick right now, maybe provide a carrot to the counties and provide them some funding to complete their mapping. Yes, putting a deadline, I think, is warranted. I'm not sure if the deadline of 2027 is the deadline, but we want the counties, or provide the counties ability. So we're asking the legislature to humbly consider providing funds for the counties so they can proceed with their mapping of IL lands. And again, in our testimony, we do also indicate that we don't know if LUC has the necessary staff or the funds, again, to complete this task. So again, we are strong supporters of IL. We want the counties to map, to identify the lands, and those lands to be dedicated in IL, which would keep them in ag, in our opinion, in perpetuity. But we prefer to see some funds going to the counties to assist them in identifying those lands that should be IL. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments.
Okay, thank you very much. That is all the people that we have registered to testify. We also have Frank Schultz testified, or written testimony in support. Are there anybody else wishing to testify? Seeing none, members, are there any questions?
I'll defer to them.
Oh, Chair? Go ahead.
Okay, I don't know if this is better for the LUC, for Department of Ag, or possibly for Farm Bureau, since Farm Bureau has tagged himself as having been here since 2005. But I was here as a freshman in 2008 and passed part of that incentives bill. So I actually think that this measure is somewhat, there's a germ of a good idea in this bill, because we have dragged our feet on the identification of IALs since before I've been here, but at least for me, for 18 years. So can someone explain to this committee why the county has taken so long? What has been the the roadblocks and the obstacles, and then how can LUC do it better? Because I think holding your feet to the fire of giving you folks, if the counties are going to continue to drag their butt since they've done it since 2008, this is a good idea. So anyone can answer that? Why is the county dragging? And then can the LUC do this within 2027? Good idea.
Chair Arnold Wong, speaking on behalf of the LUC and Vice Chair. The intent is good. The language is suspect at most. Sorry, Brian. But the way the language is crafted, yes, you did allow the counties to do the work, but it was an unfunded mandate, and the counties itself doesn't have the wherewithal at this point in time to do the work. So that's why Farm Bureau, we agree that if you are going to pass it on to the counties, they should get some resources, because the way they came across the LUC prior, it was very haphazard, to say the least, and they didn't reach out to all the farmers. So that's why.
And LUC is now positioned to potentially do it better.
If we have the resources, because right now we're very limited.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other questions? Representative Iwamoto.
Well, if we had a limited amount of state funds, shouldn't we fulfill our kuleana to address or recognize or map our own ag lands first?
Are you asking?
I mean, to those who are maybe in support of allocating money to the counties at this point, shouldn't we do what we should do at the state level? And then if we need further monies, then if we have more money to expend on this, then secondarily give it to the counties.
We would agree with that, Rep, but again, if there is funds, because right now, LUC is barely holding on to what we can do. I mean, right now, even I am not a civil service, I'm exempt. So to tell you the truth, they brought me on just to do a certain work, and I'm behind schedule, as the chair knows, for certain items.
Members, any other questions? Question? No?
Thank you.
Seeing none, we're moving on. Next up, we have SB 739. Is that correct? Yep. First up, we have OHA with comments. Not here. Next, we have DLNR.
Co-chairs,
with
vice
comments.
chairs, Ryan Kanako-Ole, Department of Land and Natural Resources. So we've submitted our written comments. I just want to highlight our two recommended amendments. The first would be on the authority of the land exchanges itself. So when we're talking about state lands, we're talking about public land trust lands, also known as ceded lands. And in this bill, as written, it would allow or authorize the governor's sole authority to engage in those land exchanges. When we, in the status quo, in the normal course, it would go, these types of things would go before the Board of Land and Natural Resources. It would allow the public to see what parcels are up for exchange and therefore weigh in on the impacts to the public. And that's one change that we're recommending. The second change is after these lands go out of the state inventory and go into private lands, private hands. In that situation, we would want to at least ensure the public that affordable housing or whatever type of housing that these lands are being, transferred over for, that the private landowners do keep to their end of the bargain. And so we would recommend language regarding reversionary clause back to the state if the intent isn't there when it goes over to private hands. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have ADC in support. Not here. Next up, we have Hawaii Farm Bureau in support.
Oh, sorry, Chair. Thank you, Chair. The Hawaii Farm Bill down on this written testimony in support.
Okay, we have two other people that submitted written testimony in support. Is there anybody on Zoom? Seeing none, is there anybody else wishing to testify? Seeing none, members, are there any questions?
I have a question.
Representative Shimizu, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. DLNR, please. So without this bill, how does this happen, or is this even possible to happen as far as this arrangement?
So land exchanges are something that happens. It's a longer process. Oh, sorry.
Ian Hirokawa with DLNR. Yes, there is a land exchange process under HRS 17150. The requirements are a bit, different. This gives a lot of discretion to the governor's office, the way the bill's written now, to do these land exchanges. Normally, they're under the purview of the board, as, the first deputy mentioned, and I believe 17150 even has a requirement for legislative approval for land exchanges. So there is a process already established in statute, but this is a different process for certain types of lands.
Follow-up question, Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So would there be any concern that the governor has unilateral discretion to make these decisions?
Well, I think we believe that, like our testimony says, it should still remain, the authority to approve it should remain with the land board for transparency. So,
And that's really where it is. It's because we're talking about public land trust lands, and the beneficiaries should be able to weigh in this type of, when we're talking about changing the laws with the broad brush on the statutory level, the public doesn't have the advantage of seeing what lands are being impacted. And, I can't expect the public to come here and provide that type of, manao on those particular lands. But when we go through the board process, those that are impacted do know, and they do show up.
I'm sorry, and I'm asking these questions, but so right now, the bill authorizes or gives the governor this discretionary authority, but it still comes under subsequent approval by the board?
Sorry, right now, the bill requires consultation with the land board, and that's not further defined. We are proposing an amendment to say, essentially subject to the governor can still negotiate these exchanges, but it's still subject to the approval of the land board. So it's a little different than what the bill is written
So
now.
that would be amended language then,
We
to
would
clarify that? Okay,
Yes.
I like that, thank you.
We have the suggested amended language. I only have one copy. I'm sorry, this is a joint committee. Oh, we have two, never mind. I can give it to both chairs. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you give it to her? Thank you. Members, any other questions? Poi, does it look like you have a question? No? I have a question. I don't want to answer. You know what? Ryan, come on. So as I read this.
Go for it.
Yeah, well, as I read this, I kind of have an idea of which parcel they're trying to convey. I'm assuming it's the West Oahu, because it talks about a rail station and whatnot. So I'm assuming it's the parcel that you guys have right by UH, West Oahu,
Potentially.
and transferring with other land, ag land up in probably Dole Estate or somewhere out there.
I don't know. I mean, that's one, we're concerned about that. And that's why it's in our testimony, we've put in a lot of money going through the planning and development stage. And we're just gently suggesting, hey, can we continue on our planning process? But, this legislation, it impacts all state lands. And so we're trying to ensure that there's a process that engages the public, a process that ensures that the public lands that do go out, they, for the right purposes. And, yeah.
Because I read your testimony, it says comments, but it sounds like opposition, so.
We would like the bill with our amendments, and that would be more optimal for us, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Members, any other questions? Nope, see none.
I'm
We're
sorry, I have one last question.
Sure.
I'm sorry, Chair. Hawaii Farm Bureau, Brian, you are in support of this bill, and I guess you see this as being an advantage to farmers. So what is my question? My question is, without this bill giving the governor authorization, do you see a problem with this bill not proceeding and being a hindrance to having farmland, more farmland?
Brian Miyamoto, Hawaii Farm Bureau. Thank you, Representative Shimizu. We believe this is a tool. The reason we're supporting this bill is we're trying to protect agricultural lands from potential development. So this is basically exchanging ag land with a landowner for TOD land. Again, the bill says it has to be a half a mile from a rail station. This is a TOD based. It's addressing our housing concerns and our agriculture concerns. It's well known that but agricultural land's always under threat, and there's tension with development. Certain landowners, even gentleman farms. So what we like to do is if there's an opportunity, again, a tool to exchange lands that are agricultural lands, so it's not other lands, agricultural lands with that landowner and exchange state lands near TOD. Again, a half-mile radius from the rail stations is the requirement. So again, so that they can build housing, affordable housing. In the meantime, the state as a landowner, and you can see ADC is listed in there, I don't know if DOA is listed in there, but the state as a landowner has a more clear mission to support agriculture and to have ag production versus some landowners who own ag land. Their intent is not necessarily agriculture production. So we look at it as a agricultural land preservation measure.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, we're moving on. Next up, we have HB 867 relating to affordable housing. First up, we have HHFDC. In support?
Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, HHFDC stands by submitted testimony.
Okay, next we have DLNR with comments.
DLNR stands on its comments.
Next we have DHHL with comments.
Aloha Chairs, Vice Chairs, members of the committees, Oriana Leal of the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. DHHL stands on its written testimony with comments noting the three distinct rights of DHHL and its beneficiaries, and we also strongly recommend the inclusion of the chair of the Hawaiian Homes Commission in the working group. Joining me today is water expert Jonathan Schroyer. If you have any questions, mahalo for the opportunity to testify.
Okay, thank you very much. Next we have Board of Water Supply. In support?
Kathy Mitchell with the Board of Water Supply. Yes, the Board of Water Supply supports Senate Bill 867 SD2.
Okay, that's all the people we have registered in person. Is there anybody else wishing to testify? See none. Anybody on Zoom? What's their name?
Aloha, Chair.
Go ahead.
Joanna Sito for the Department of Health, standing on our written testimony and support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all the people that we have registered to testify. Is there anybody else wishing to testify? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Boy, go ahead.
All right, jump the gun. It was actually Kira's bill. I was just so excited for the previous conversation, so.
Closer to the mic.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Kira Kahahane, DLNR Commission on Water Resource Management.
Thank you. In reviewing the bill, do you not find that a lot of what is being requested to be completed is kind of redundant of the work that the commission already does, the information that you already have compiled? That's the question.
Sure. Yes, we do already have a lot of information on the availability of water, and we are already working to try to streamline our well approval processes where it's appropriate. To me, one of the advantages of this working group is the opportunity for further collaboration with the counties and water purveyors, others who are involved in the actual delivery and creation of water infrastructure. This is not the only vehicle that we have to do that. I meet with the county boards of water supply monthly. We are always very interested in further collaboration and cooperation to try to keep things moving forward where we can. So if this working group does happen, we'll be happy to participate and take it as the opportunity that it represents, but I do not see this as necessary.
Okay, thank you. Just to follow up, in the bill, it also speaks specifically to counties taking on water allocation. Is that something that, I guess that was a flag for me, and it was concerning because the county does distribution, the CWRM does allocation, the Department of Health does water safety. So do you think that that is appropriate, or do you support exploring the counties taking on allocation? Do you think that, because that's the CWRM's job, what's the CWRM going to do if the counties take allocation?
To me, it was not clear, perhaps from the language of the bill, what exactly that means. So for example, under the water code, once one of the counties gets a water use permit and an allocation, they have the freedom to redistribute that specific allocation from that specific source as they see fit. So they have the flexibility to do that already within the water code. So yes, allocation decisions beyond that are within the purview of CWRM, and it would take an amendment to the water code to actually put any deviation from that into practice. It's something that I would be willing to look at to give the counties more authority, with the very substantial caveat that all political subdivisions of the state have the same public trust duties. We're all stewards of the public trust, and so CWRM currently is the primary steward of those, the primary decision maker for things like water allocations. If the counties were to take a more active role in that, they would, be sharing in that aspect of the public trust duties that we currently have.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Chair, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Question kind of related to Rep. Poi Poi's question, and maybe I'm asking the same question but worded a different way. But so this analysis and information, does it already exist?
I'm sorry, I don't have the bill in front of me. The analysis and information about.
As far as forming a working group to analyze the water situation and so on and so forth.
Right, a lot of that is information that we already have as far as water availability, what's there. The information that is in the county's water use and development plans, of course, we already have. So to answer your question briefly, I think the answer is yes. It's just the ability to all sit in the same room and lay it all out on the table and have a holistic conversation about it.
Follow-up question, Chair. Sure. I guess, I'm outside of, this is my freshman year and I'm learning the ropes on here. And sometimes I feel like we create laws and that creates bureaucracy. And it might be an advantage and it might be a disadvantage. So I heard you say you don't feel this bill is necessary. Did I hear you say it correctly?
Yes, you did.
So by passing this bill, you did say there might be more collaboration, but there might be more obstacles also because there's more people getting involved and there's opposing views and, there's good and bad in that. But do you feel like DLNR is able to have this responsibility of water resource and correctly steward that on your own without this working group?
I think in any case, we need to be having more conversations and communicating more. I would love to see the commission move towards more proactive planning for water resources. And I'm happy to do that outside of the framework set out by this bill.
Right, right. So in other words, without this bill, you can still have that conversation and quote a working group.
Yes.
Okay,
We'll still
thank-
be doing the work as a
Right,
group.
Right, thank you.
Members, any other questions? Seeing none, we are moving on.
Thank you.
Good testimony. Thank you very much. Next up, we have SB 1221, SD2, relating to stormwater systems. I need to catch up myself too. Okay, first up, we have DLNR with comments.
So DLNR, we submitted comments, but truly we're really concerned about this bill. We do not believe DLNR is the appropriate agency for a program of this sort. The counties are probably the appropriate place for this type of program. So going back, going back to this bill itself and its reassignment, we were not initially tracking this bill. It was the Department of Health assigned the bill previously. It may have been by mistake, we're not sure, or a mistaken understanding of DLNR's functions, but in the previous committee at the House side, there was some testimony by the Department of Health that this type of program was outside of their functions and capabilities, and so there was also some conversations had that DLNR had a dam safety inspection program. Maybe that was why this program got placed with us, but truly that our dam inspection program doesn't provide the same type of expertise required for this kind of like safety, the criteria for this kind of program, where it's more of like an anti-drowning program. The individual counties, because they oversee the stormwater runoff and all the drainage systems, they have, by comparison, at the county level, it's variable, right? But they have similar programs already in place, or at least the framework in place through their permitting, through their monitoring, through their inspections for this kind of program to be put in place at the county level. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have Allison Schaefers in support. Oh, yes, you can hand it to her.
Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair and committee members, for the opportunity to testify today. My 5-year-old daughter, Charlotte Schaefers, whom we called Sharky, drowned in 2004, saving a childhood friend who was struggling in a flooded and improperly maintained detention pond. The developers in our community knew that one of the pipes was clogged, but chose not to fix it, and that choice turned an area. And you can see from those pictures, the pond is now fenced. That orange fence is the water. They fenced it after she drowned, but the water level at that time, because of a massive clog, had actually turned the water above those culverts, and that fencing was only put up at my insistence. Now it's not being maintained. I went back on February 28th of this year, the day of her anniversary of her death, and the weeds are so overgrown in it that it's blocking the drains again. So pretty sure that it's not doing the function that it's supposed to do. And that's a lot of the reason that I feel like this bill is very important, because some developers and communities and managers and owners will do the right thing, but not everybody will when no one is watching. After Sharky's death, my family was awarded a $2 million wrongful death settlement, the largest at the time for the death of a child in Hawaii. If that same injury happened today, it would likely cost far more, potentially causing insurance rates to spike along with the price of rents and home construction. Drowning is preventable, but is now the leading cause of death for Hawaii's keiki ages 1 to 15. Why? Because we are not investing enough in our children's safety. That must change now. Our math is bad when we put more value on saving dollars than we do on saving lives, especially the lives of our children. I do, however, understand that state lawmakers have a strong desire to manage costs in the current environment. I suggest making a slight amendment to this bill that will clarify and reduce the state's cost burden by making clear the responsibility that pertain to owners, operators of retention and detention ponds who shall pay for inspections and will face fines for noncompliance. If you amend the rules fines portion of this bill, you could just add in adoption of reasonable inspection fees, which together with fines should provide a way to subsidize the cost of safety monitoring. I strongly support SB 1221, though it has some changes from House Bill 1233 that went through your committee earlier. That bill designated, this bill designates DLNR to inspect and monitor, while your bill assigned the counties to enhance their requirement. Either choice is acceptable to me, as I'm simply seeking a statewide consistent solution, because this issue is too important to just let the counties handle it on their own, which would result in piecemeal requirements. If the counties are designated in this bill, it will require a cost share with the state. However, I do not believe that would be overly high. This bill only applies to new construction. The survey requirements allow for a phased-in process. They require report and recommendation to the ledge next year, but not an immediate solution for pre-existing ones. And that survey may already exist at DLNR, so that could be incorporated into this process to reduce the county workload. Developers and operators will pay for the fencing, ring buoy, and signage. The counties just basically would have to add these requirements to their permitting process, which I don't think is it's just kind of adopting the checklist. I noticed that Hunt Construction is asking for scaling back of some of these requirements. I just want to note that Hunt Construction was the developer of my community and was one of the parties that chose not to fix the clog and settled for my daughter's wrongful death. Based on my recent visit, I do think that these rules are important, and it sounds from Hunt's testimony that they may incorporate some of these ponds in Kailaloa. Stormwater management is important, but let's ensure that we're using the best practices in the state. Because often these ponds are placed in communities where more affordable communities where you have wetlands and low-lying areas. And so I think that's an equity issue too, in that we want to protect the least of our people that live in these communities, like I did, an affordable community. 21 years ago, Sharky stood on the banks of a flooded detention pond and watched a younger friend struggling. She had a decision to make, and she didn't hesitate to do the right thing. She saved her friend. I challenge you to do the right thing too. If a 5-year-old can be a hero, I think we can all be heroes. Hawaii needs more water safety champions, so let's help Sharky save more lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Gregory. Is Gregory on Zoom? Gregory on Zoom.
Thank you. Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Greg Masakian, and I currently serve as the first Vice President of the Kukua Council, and I'm also a member of the Waikiki Neighborhood Board. And both at the Kukua Council and the Neighborhood Board, we were able to hear a presentation on the concerns related to these retention ponds and also water safety issues throughout the state of Hawaii. It seems to be a very serious issue. We hear about it daily in the news. Someone's drowning, a tourist, a local resident, a child. It's very sad to hear about these things. And we're all here today to hopefully try to improve the situation and get to a point where we don't hear about these deaths anymore. This is one area that you can help. And I'm a strong advocate for safety. I'm an advocate for Kapuna and for the lesser advantaged. And I do what I do to help the community. And I know Ms. Schaefers is doing what she can do, not just to help the memory of her daughter, but also to help, hopefully, so there's no more memories of loss. So I ask that you support this measure, and I truly hope that it can be moved forward. If there's any amendments that are needed, I hope that that can be worked out and we get to a place where it's a very good bill and we have a positive outcome. So thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is all the people that we have registered to testify. We have probably 20 more written testimonies in support. Are there anybody else wishing to testify? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Representative Bellotti?
DLNR. I really appreciate that your forthrightness in saying that you are not probably the appropriate department, but I'm looking at the testimony from the Department of Health in the previous committees, and they seem to also say that they don't have any responsibilities. Can you explain a little bit more about how Department of Health, with its oversight of and its authorities under the Clean Water Act, it may be the more appropriate agency?
I believe we were talking more about the survey and inventory information, because that's part of the bill, right? It's to get that kind of information, and the information that is captured by the MPDES permits that go through the Department of Health would capture like retention basins, in addition to other types of waterways that fall under the Clean Water Act. At DLNR, we don't have that amount of capture at this time, so we identified their program, and particularly the information housed within their program, as potentially a way where you can capture additional information, as part of this program.
And then in
that
reality,
can be used by the counties.
Sure. And just to clarify, DOH does have more responsibility over stormwater management than DLNR. That is clear. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, we're moving on. Next up, we have HB 657 relating to the Center for Climate Resilient Development. First up, we have DLNR in support.
Good morning, Chairs. Michael Kane on behalf of DLNR. We stand on our testimony in strong support of this bill. And I wanted to add that a lot of the policies that our office develops, Office of Conservation and Coastal Land, is based upon the research that comes out of the center. So we would be advocating that the center be funded locally with state funds rather than federal funds, even if the current situation in Washington wasn't happening. This is an important local asset for us. Thank you.
Good testimony. Next up, we have University of Hawaii in support.
Yes. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. My name is Chip Fletcher. I'm from University of Hawaii. This bill would formalize, create a Center for Climate Resilient Development that would formalize research that's been going on for 20 years at our school, relevant to the coastal erosion problem, the sea level rise problem. The research produces maps that are key to over a dozen laws and policies that are listed on the front page and second page. Most of these laws and policies also require that the data set be updated on a regular basis, and that is the work that we do. We are also modeling how sea level rise will affect Waikiki. Sea level rise floods in more ways than most people realize. There's not only coastal erosion and the flow of water with sea level rise, but the water table rises and creates new wetlands in our urban areas. And waves, of course, those swell events on the North Shore in the winter and South Shore in the summer will punch into and across our coastal zone. Gravity-based drainage fails, and we need to move to pumped-based drainage. All of these are being modeled by this research team consisting of 4 or 5 graduate students who are funded and about 10 professional modelers. And so we seek the establishment of this center to continue this vital data production and modeling for the health of the state as we move into very severe sea level rise situation developing in the next couple of decades. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Keone Dudley. Nope, nobody. That's all the registered testifiers we have. Is there anybody else wishing to testify? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? I have a question. Representative Shimizu.
Thank you, Chair. Question for University of Hawaii, please. So the question would be, without this bill, does the work that's focused on the scope of this bill disappear?
Considering the actually current rejection of the term climate change and sea level rise at the federal level, our federal funding is in danger right now. I've already received, for one of our bills, one of our grants from NOAA, I've received a set of inquiries related to how does our work relate to climate change, 17 different questions coming from NOAA and asking us to remove certain words and then explain to them how this would change the research that we're doing. So there's an ongoing and active threat to our research. We also have to, we have had county funding in the past, we have had state funding, we have had federal funding, and we will continue to write grants for all of these. But this is an especially fraught time considering the present federal administration.
Okay, thank you. So would you say that the majority of your funding is currently federal funding then?
Yes.
That's possibly in jeopardy?
That's correct.
Okay.
All of our current funding is federal funding.
I see. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
First, Dr. Fletcher, I just want to thank you for all the work that you've done. I mean, you've truly led the effort to make sure that we can be as resilient as possible, but in light of all the threats of climate change, I fear for our state.
Thank you, Chair.
So I really appreciate the work you do. In your testimony, when you say that laws and policies depend on SOAS data, and you refer to things like real estate transactions, analysis for Hawaii Environmental Policy Acts, for shoreline setback ordinances for different counties, when you say that your work feeds into these types of things, would there be an economic impact if for some reason your ability to produce this data for things like real estate transactions, will that have a negative impact on our economy?
Absolutely. The most expensive way to deal with sea level rise and climate change is to ignore it until the last minute. And our research lays out adaptation strategies. Each one of those types of impacts that I listed has their own adaptation strategy. And there's currently at the City and County of Honolulu a project called Waikiki 2050. Their entire project is based on our data and mapping. I recognize that that's a county initiative, but we all depend on Waikiki. It's the gateway to tourism, which upholds our economy. So yes, it would have a very severe impact to our economy.
Thank you, and thank you for being really clear about that, because I think, we think about these threats, we don't understand the hard impacts, the actual impacts on our economy. We think they're just kind of out there, and it's research. What does research do, right? But this actually intersects with policies that have to get passed, plans that have to be made, laws that we pass on data that we rely on from you. And if we don't fund something like this, we're essentially going to be shooting ourselves.
Thank you, I appreciate that. We are the only group doing this in the state, and this is applied engineering scientific research that we're doing.
Again, thank you, Dr. Fletcher, for all the work that you were doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? No other questions? Well, last question. How much are you asking for?
$3 million.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
That's all. Members, any questions? Seeing none? That's the last bill we have on our agenda. We will recess. You guys ready? Okay. So gaveling back in on our Committee on Water and Land and Joint with Public Safety for the first two bills. First bill, we have SB 11 SD2. We are going to defer this to time certain Thursday morning's agenda, 9 a.m. With that, moving on to SB 1296 relating to disaster recovery. Chair's recommendation is to pass this with an HD1, taking DLNR's and OPSD's amendments. Any questions or concerns?
Question.
Or Vice, Joint Chair. Go ahead.
Are we going to defect the date?
Oh, thank you very much for pointing that out. So we're gonna make tech amendments and defect date the bill to 7/1/3000. And if I forget again, all the bills, we're gonna make technical amendments and defect date all the bills to 7/1/3000. Thank you for catching that. I appreciate that. Any comments or concerns? Seeing none? Vice Chair for the vote.
For Water and Land, we're voting on SB 1296 SD2, recommendation of the chairs to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Bellotti.
Aye.
Representative Ichiyama.
Aye.
Representative Iwamoto.
Aye.
Representative Morikawa.
Aye.
Representative Poi Poi.
Aye.
Representative Woodson is excused. Representative Shimizu. Representative Souza.
Aye.
Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Oh,
Same recommendation for public safety.
we should have took them both at the same time.
No.
Go ahead.
Okay, voting on SB 1296 SD2. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Hashem?
Aye.
Representative Ichiyama?
Aye.
Representative Lamasao?
Aye.
Representative Morikawa?
Aye.
Representative Poi Poi?
Aye. Aye.
Yes, thank you, Representative. Just looking for Representative Woodson is excused. Representative Shimizu? Aye. Representative Souza?
Aye.
Okay, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much, members. Next up, we have SB 1170 SD2 relating to the expeditious redevelopment and development of affordable rental housing. The chair's recommendation is to take KCOM's Corp's technical amendments. We're going to make tech amendments and defect date to 7/1/3000. That's about it. Any concerns, questions? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Okay. We are on SB 1170 SD2. Recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, and also noting the excused absence of Representative Woodson. Anyone voting with reservations? Anyone voting no? All other members present, Chair, vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, next up, we have SB 1099 relating to IAL. The chair's recommendation is to take this bill and to change it so the LUC to designate state and county land versus every other land. So it's only government land. With that, any questions or concerns?
I'm going to vote WR.
Sure. Okay, and we're going to make tech amendments and defect date to 7/1/3000. Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Okay. Voting on SB 1099, sorry,
Yeah, 1099.
1099, okay. Recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments. Noting the excused absence of Representative Woodson. Anyone voting with reservations? With reservations for Representative Iwamoto. Anyone voting with reservations for Representative Shimizu? Anyone voting no? Seeing none, all other members vote aye. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay. Next up, we have SB 739 SD2 relating to land exchange. The chair's recommendation is to make technical amendments, defect date to 7/1/3000, and we're gonna take DLNR and OHA's amendments. So, any questions or concerns?
Yeah, Chair, I appreciate the amendments. I'm going to vote no.
Okay. See none, or see? Vice Chair for the vote?
Okay, voting on SB 739 SD2, recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments, noting the excused absence of Representative Woodson. Anyone voting with reservations? And also noting the no from Representative Iwamoto. Anyone else voting no? Okay, all other members vote aye. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we have SB 867 SD2 relating to affordable housing. Chair's recommendation is to, is this the correct one? Wait, hold on. Let me reset. Oh, yeah, okay. This is the one, yeah, Chair's recommendation is to defer this. Wait.
167, yeah.
Wait, hold on, let me recess. Let me get my notes together. Gaveling back in. Okay, Chair's recommendation is to defer SD 867 based upon the testimony. It's redundant. Next up, we have SB 1221 SD2 relating to stormwater management. The chair, oh, I defer to my vice chair.
For this measure, we are going to insert the language from HB 1232 HD2 based upon the testimonies that we received. And any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I will be taking the vote. Voting on SB 1221 SD2, recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting the excused absence of Representative Woodson. Anyone voting with reservations? Anyone voting no?
I'm sorry, with reservations.
With reservations for Representative Iwamoto. Anyone else with reservations? Seeing none, all other members vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we have SB 657 SD1 relating to the Center for Climate Resilient Development. Chair's recommendation is to pass this out with an HT1, defecting the date to 7/1/3000, putting in the committee report that they are requesting $3 million annually, and that's it. Any comments or concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Okay, voting on SB 657 SD1, recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments, noting the excused absence of Representative Woodson. Anyone voting with reservations? With reservations for Representative Shimizu. Anyone voting with reservations? Seeing none, all other members vote aye. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. We are adjourned.